Welcome to the penultimate qualifying session of the season and the first for GP3 at the Sepang International Circuit just south of the Malaysian capital city, Kuala Lumpur. It's an impressive facility worthy of where we are in the series. Every session is vital from here on in. It's 30 minutes to decide the grid here at round 8 of the 2016 GP3 series. I'm your commentator, Alex Jakes. Well, at a time when all eyes have been on the points battle, it's been Arden who have been stealing the headlines in recent weeks. 5 podiums in 5 races. They have brought very strong form from Monza, where they scored a 1-2. They've continued it here with Jack Aitken, the fastest man, after a truncated 30-minute session in practice, and that is why they are straight out there, ready and raring to warm tyres, to warm brakes, to get the temperatures where they need to be, all except for Sandy Stuvig, who is taking his time to head out onto the racetrack, hoping to recreate his best of the season so far, which was a front row at Silverstone. He was second that day, and the rest of the time he has struggled to make the top 10. He's only made the top 10 on one other occasion. You're looking at Matevos Essakan, one of only 2 Karajan cars in the field. This weekend, he has lost a teammate. Ralph Boschong is not here. He is supporting the team from afar. So it's just Parry and Essakan for Karajan. There is Matt Parry going inside Kevin Yorg at turn 9 as they begin to jockey for position, fighting over tactical space on the 5.5 kilometer circuit. And you can see it has been relayed in terms of asphalt, and this here was the key corner yesterday, turn 12, really unsettling the cars, causing major issues, and I wonder if we'll see more of the same today. We're almost certain to, given the fact that the cars have had such little track time. The one bonus is, as we ride on board with the points leader Charles Leclerc, is that they have only had 30 minutes down from 45 in terms of track time, but they have had far longer to debate what to do amongst themselves as we focus on the ART team that, of course, claimed their 6th championship out of 7 seasons. Absolutely remarkable form from ART in GP3. They have been the class of this series since its inception, and we've seen that again this year, on board with another man who is trying to chase down his teammate in the race for the title. Alexander Albon, the Thai driver, currently coming out of turn number 3, knows that he has to go all out attack. He needs to give it everything. He needs to start taking points away from Leclerc. And Leclerc is fully committed to this series. He was meant to be running in Formula 1 free practice run 1 earlier today, but he decided against that. He is putting everything in to the first, what he hopes is a major title for him with the GP3 series title. We got a brief glimpse there at Alessio Lorandi, the other driver change this weekend, and he joins us from Formula 3. Yesterday managed to get himself to 17th position as we get a confirmation of the order in the points. We're riding on board with Antonio Fuoco, who is sitting there in 2nd position, adrift of Leclerc. Fuoco knows that he needs to turn that absolutely excellent consistency that he's shown all year round into some outright pace, because Leclerc has been a formidable customer in qualifying so far this year, never outside of the top 10. In fact, his lowest grid position in 2016 is 7th at Silverstone, and that was a session where we saw inclement weather. Back on board with Leclerc, interested observers hoping that he will be able to take the title. We saw the first race where you could really tell the management for the title last time out in Monza. That is when he really did not fight the Ardens on the way through. Neither did he really fight Jake Hughes, as he took a very impressive podium. But Leclerc got the elbows out. He was very robust indeed in terms of defending against Antonio Fuoco. And that fourth place was able to extend his lead in the series, and it's a very tidy lap for him so far. This is where it begins to get a little bit tricky. A little bit of a swap there, a little bit of a swap once again. So Leclerc hanging on to it through turns 5 and 6 into 7 and 8, where we saw major issues for drivers in the GP2 series in terms of their qualifying a few moments ago, but Leclerc has negotiated it nicely. We also saw in GP2 a couple of moments ago the real importance, the real value of getting a lap in nice and early, taking the pressure off the second run, and Charles Leclerc is doing just that at the moment. Yesterday, Jack Aitken's fastest time was a 150.8. It'll be interesting to see where this effort puts Leclerc. A little bit more oversteer. They're really having to hustle the cars through each corner of this racetrack. Remember, far less grip than we see in GP2, miles less grip than we see in Formula 1. Cars with a top speed of 165 miles an hour. That's what Leclerc is breaking down from right now. Through the reprofiled final hairpin, ducking for the line. You can see the heat haze there. These drivers will never have faced heat quite like this. Alexander Albon is across the line to better his teammates' time. Well, we saw Albon very comfortable yesterday ahead of his teammate, who was only down in 9th. And Albon once again 2 tenths to the good at a race he really needs to. Really strong yesterday was Nick de Vries, who's coming over the line, but he's only 3rd at the moment. An ART 1, 2, 3 and 4 now with Nairo Fukuzumi bumping himself up to 3rd in the order. This is Mativos Esikan, the Russian driver, kicking up the dust, just like we saw from Gustav Malia. And that compromises his lap at the earliest possible moment. And a lock-up at the final turn for Matt Parry. Saw that an awful lot in Formula 1 free practice too. But Parry just about able to hang on to it, Konstantin Tereshchenko. This is where they were all struggling yesterday. And you see, trying to keep it committed to the floor. Let's see where Antonio Fuoco goes. He goes 4th in the order. Alex Palou has gone into 5th, a strong run. Sandy Stubing immediately displaces him. So ART 1, 2, 3, then 4 and 5 with Fuoco and Stuvik. Confirmation of that on your screen after the early flurry of action. Jake Dennis has got himself up there. So the ART supremacy is interrupted. Albon ahead of Dennis, who has never taken a pole position in GP3, but has started from the front row on 2 occasions this year. There we get a sight of Jake Dennis, currently working a 151.2. That's 2 tenths of a second away from Albon. And interesting to see that Aitken was miles slower than his best effort. So it'll be interesting to hear whether he had traffic on that earlier run. You see the ARDA mechanics there looking high to the giant screens that sit over the pit lane here in Sepang. So no hope that the tyres will survive for another lap initially. We did see Jake Dennis practicing the technique of doing a slower lap after his initial run and then going again. Let's see what sort of grip Charles Leclerc has got as he brakes at about 120 meters for the corner, running slightly wider to the apex. The first turn here is one where you can absolutely do that. Here's turn number 2 on us immediately. Careful not to run too wide. We saw that from Esikan. Not a problem for the Monegasque driver. Turn 3, absolutely simple for everyone racing here this weekend. And the bumps have been removed to turn 4, so it's far less of a challenge, but that's what happens when you clobber the curb or the apex. Losing time there on the rears. Interesting, Leclerc has felt the need to go again immediately to try and get on terms with Albon, the man currently sitting in 3rd position. A long way adrift after a difficult weekend in Belgium. And remember, when you only have 9 rounds in a season, you cannot afford a poor performance in the first race of the weekend, because with the nature of the reverse grid, unless you're in the top 8, you have no real chance of getting yourself on the podium in the second race of the weekend. Leclerc not happy at all at the moment. 3 tenths adrift. His teammate, however, Nick de Vries, further down the road, set the fastest first sector of anyone, a tenth faster than Alexander Albon has managed at the moment. So Leclerc still having to work away at the steering wheel more than he'd like. On the right-hand side, the GP3 and GP2 paddock for this weekend. That's not his concern at all. He's focusing on the braking point for the newly reprofiled final hairpin here. It joins the two long straights that are a major characteristic of this Sepang circuit. Up through the gears, ducking for the line, and Leclerc is unable to improve. Santino Ferrucci, can he do anything about his 9th place position at the moment on his second lap on the hard Pirelli rubber? Yes, he can. 4th place for Ferrucci. He improves. Now the man to watch is going to be last over the line. Here he comes now. De Vries gets himself up to 2nd. Thought it was going to be good enough for provisional pole. For Kazumi in the background, what can he do? He won't improve this time. Now Aiken's the man to watch. The red Arden at the top of your picture there, now in full view, and Aiken can't replicate the heroics from earlier on in this weekend, and he's 6th at the moment. Jake Dennis, remember, was 2nd. He's been displaced, and he comes across the line, and he stays in 3rd position, but with the fastest final sector of anyone so far in this session. So Albon ahead of De Vries, ahead of Dennis, the 1, 2, 3. And are we going to see why Aiken perhaps did not make the impact that he wanted to, with a Campos all over the road in front of him, and that would have undoubtedly cost him time. Here's Albon on his 2nd lap, and a big moment there for Albon, lucky to keep it out of a full spin and rejoining in a hurry as well. That is why we did not see him improve on his 2nd flying lap. Albon's back out there. So Pirelli have brought the hard tyre, the tyre compound we had at the start of the year, which showed very little degradation indeed. But around the lateral loads of this circuit and the intense track temperature of 50 degrees, it's cooling with every moment that passes. It was up for 55 for GP2 qualifying. It's only 50 now. Air temperature out there is 33 degrees. And some of the crowd staying behind to watch the talent of the future racing today. They're doing so in typically tropical conditions. Now, is Albon going to come into the pits, or does he believe he's got more life in the tyres? So, completely different to what we've seen from GP2. The drivers I know were confident in maybe, after a cool-off lap, going again for another run. But, interestingly, didn't expect them to last this long. Is Albon gambling, or ART, are they that confident in terms of tyre wear? Have a little look on the right-hand side, and the left for that matter, in terms of the wear on the tyre. We know this hard Pirelli really does hold on in a magnificent way, but Pirelli has selected the hard compound because the degradation is so extreme around this circuit. Leclerc not having it all his own way off the back of 2 consecutive pole positions. Pole in Monza, pole in Spa. He's looking for the hat-trick today. Not at all comfortable at the moment. Interesting to see the never-ending flurry of laps in sharp contrast. We've only had Ferrucci in the pits, Parry in the pits, Hughes and Jorg. Everyone else is still out there working times or in the process of returning to the pit lane. And you see now Leclerc dramatically losing 6/10 in the middle part of the lap. So surely time for him to come in and get another set of the Pirelli rubber as we approach the halfway stage. And a confirmation that it's Albon ahead of De Vries. Dennis is in 3rd position. You see the dams of Hughes being pushed back. He's only in 13th position. Really was one of the stars of Monza with his intense drive through the field from 8th to the podium, the bottom step of the podium, but one he was very proud of indeed. Called it the best drive of his career so far. He almost couldn't believe how quick he was. Thank the team that day. He and the team now desperately need to work together to get Dams out of trouble. We do tend to see this though with the Dams team at newer circuits. At the classics they tend to have no trouble at all with tyre temperature. Wouldn't have expected it to be a problem here given the temperature that we've got out on the racetrack and the moment. And De Vries has gone faster. He's deposed his teammate Alexander Albon, so staying out there and running lap after lap. He's run 7 laps in this session, and Nick De Vries with the fastest first sector and fastest last sector of the lap with a 1:50.7 gets himself to the top of the order when no one else could make the tyres last or expected the tyres to last. And that really does bode well, not only for this position in the session, but for his tyre management tomorrow in the race. Antonio Fuoco is out there. He's had a personal best in the first sector, but a middle ordinary sector, and it's only 9th for the man who is in second position in the points battle. Fuoco with a mini mountain to climb in the final 14 minutes of this session. So looking very good indeed for Albon, who has great initial pace out of the box. We saw a miniature error, not a major one, not one to cause any great concern as the tyres got away, but Albon will be confident, and it looks once again like we're going to have an ART in the mix for pole. But that was a late lap from Nick De Vries, who, remember, is our most recent race winner. He triumphed in Monza, a win that many thought was overdue given the pace that he's shown earlier this season, and he is one of the last to return to the pit lane along with Jake Dennis. He currently finds himself in third, but look at the margin, 0.4 of a second away. Just a look at Dennis's sector times. It's the middle part of the lap that he will desperately want to improve upon. And not really in the battle at all. How unusual is this? Nearly half a second adrift, confirming where he is. 4 fingers up and then a shrug of the shoulders. Not a disaster, but not what we've come to expect from Charles Leclerc. Adjustments are made at the front of his ART GP3 2016. And you see the laurel on the front. They've already got the stickers printed because ART are the team champions of 2016. They have retained their title from 2015. So we've not really seen the traditional gap in the same way, but the majority of the field are in the pits now. Sandy Stuvig isn't. He's out there, and we're focusing on the only other car on the racetrack. That's Matt Parry. 2 Koreans in the field. He's one of them, and at the moment he's in 8th position. Parry coming off the back of a disastrous time in Monza, where he was only 17th, and we know that Matt Parry is much, much better than that. The rest of the year, he has been in the top 10 on 4 occasions, and his best the race weekend where he took his first victory in the series. That was the front row start in Budapest. So De Vries, the current man on pole position. Still time for that all to change. Not a lot of time in order to make mechanical changes to the car, though. Dennis, who has been so very strong, once he's managed to get past that sort of difficult period of luck. We saw how well the Ardens managed their tyres in Belgium. Once again, they were very confident indeed. The drivers were so confident they were going to win. More confident than the mechanics, of course, and they had a bet, which we heard them talking about after the race, where if they didn't win the race, either Aitken or Dennis, they were going to have to go to the prize giving at the end of the year wearing lipstick and makeup. But they did win the race, and as a result, some of the very impressive hipster beards from the Arden mechanics had to be shaved in the time that we've had from Monza to right here in Malaysia. So Parry on his flying lap. Wonder whether he will go for another warm-up. And he is attacking out there, finding the grip. We did see, it's interesting that De Vries has managed to make the tyres last, because we saw the opposite of that in Budapest, where De Vries had very limited time to get his tyres up in terms of the temperature he would want. So Nick De Vries at the end of the year might be asking himself what might have been in terms of his title challenge this year, because it's between 2 of his teammates and he finds himself there in 4th position. Let's focus on Matt Parry, who is attacking this racetrack for all he's worth. A personal best in the first sector. See how he measures up as he approaches the second sector. Neatly through turn number 9, where it is so easy to lock up, and Parry with the fastest middle sector of anyone so far in this session. And so Parry really able to find time with every corner that he travels through. This is a crucial one, and he's absolutely aced it. No deviation from the optimum racing line at all for the Welshman, and now all he's got to do is fly up through the gears and pick his braking spot into the final corner that used to be on camber and is now off camber to provide another issue. The great thing is Parry's never raced here before, so he doesn't know the difference. He just knows how it is in 2016. It looks tired, it looks tidy, it looks impressive. Where does it put Parry? Because he was so impressive in the middle part of the lap. Matt Parry to the line, and he's second in the order at the moment. So that option to run in the gap has paid off really nicely. The downside is for Parry, if he was going to go for another flyer, he's got the entire field in front of him, weaving left to right, warming their tyres and brakes, as you see the rest of the field back out there on the circuit, returning for their final runs in this crucial session. Remember, 4 points for pole on offer. Could be absolutely crucial in terms of the title battle. At the moment, Charles Leclerc will be delighted, because although he has not really seemed to have a comfortable balance with that ART all weekend long, he does not have a title rival currently sitting on provisional pole. So De Vries doing him a favour, and Parry getting himself up there again. Ordinary first sector for Parry, so he's going to have to cool the tyres off and go again. Now remember, the drivers have a little bit of a luxury. GP2 guys did not have this. They know that if there is a mistake, there is time and opportunity to go again. But remember, it's a 1:50.7. Our current pole position time doesn't give you a lot of time. You can't. It's going to have to be a little 95%er, if you like, for the first run, and then everything they've got at the end. I think Alexander Albon has looked very composed indeed in terms of the ART drivers. De Vries was the fastest ART driver yesterday, behind Kevin York, who is down there in 16th. So the Swiss driver unable, unfortunately for him at least, to recreate the form that we saw yesterday, and that's disappointing, because York was very impressive indeed. He's managed to get himself in the top 10 of the last 2 sessions in terms of qualifying in Belgium and in Italy. So 7 minutes to go. I reckon 1 of 5 drivers could find themselves on pole position, and another shout out to Arjun Maini, who has impressed a great deal of those watching on in from both paddocks here. He has slotted in really nicely to GP3, and he is always there or thereabouts, currently sitting in 6th position. Santino Ferrucci is 7th, Aitken is 8th, 9th Foco, and 10th, rounding out the top 10, Sandy Stuvig. And I think the top 5 are the only personnel in the field that can realistically challenge for pole, but we've seen some impressive laps so far this year. We've had Leclerc on pole, we've had Albon on pole, De Vries as well. Jake Hughes so far is the only non-ART driver to register a pole position. That was way back in May in Barcelona at the first round of the season. So, can Parry do anything on a second run? Can Dennis get Arden their first pole of the season? It would be Arden's 11th in the series if he could. Aitken as well. Remember, his second flying run was interrupted by Campos returning to the racetrack. One of many drivers that have had a real issue with either turns 12 or the exit of turn 13. So this is where the pressure rests heavily on the shoulders. The drivers won't tell you that. They'll claim that these are the moments that they absolutely love. Foot to the floor. Here's the lap that counts then for Jake Dennis. We're riding on board with him as he builds up through the gears to the first turn, back down through them, down from 165 miles an hour, nicely through the first turn. Let's see how it works into 2. This is looking composed in the early part of the lap. Using a lot of curb, but that's not going to cost him. He's in the fastest corner of the lap. It's no concern for him at all. Jake Dennis is through 3. Now, heavy braking now. See where the balance of his car is. He's up. He is up with the fastest first sector of anyone so far. So the man currently in 4th position, who claimed his first victory last time out at Monza. What a podium that is to stand on. And he lapped up every single moment, charging through. And he is charging once again on one lap where it matters. Really looking a composed lap from the graduate from Formula 3 last year in GP3 this. Trying to give Arden another pole position, and it's looking very good indeed so far. 2/10 to the good. Fastest man in the first sector and the second sector. If you're wondering if they're all improving by that much, they are not. This is a truly exceptional lap that we're enjoying on board with Jake Dennis. Fuoco has posted the fastest middle sector, so Fuoco is improving, but elsewhere it's just personal best on the board. Dennis, with very little of the lap to go, can he get himself to the top of the timing screens? He's locked up at the end, and he's gone wide to surely blow the best of the lap. Can he still snatch provisional pole position away? He will be so frustrated with himself. Had an opportunity for pole in Germany and made an error, and unfortunately for the British driver, it's happened again. And after posting the fastest time in the first sector and the second sector, it wasn't to be in the final part of the lap for Jake Dennis. He remains in 4th. In fact, he's immediately been displaced by Antonio Fuoco, who is in 4th position. Palou was strong earlier on in the session, and he takes provisional pole with 3 minutes to go. De Vries is also a man to watch, as is Charles Leclerc, who takes provisional pole by half a second. Parry is 4th. Here comes Albon. He's behind his teammate, his rival for the title. Fukuzumi over the line. De Vries has been going very quickly indeed in the middle sector of this lap, but you can see from Dennis how easy it is to make a mistake. Nick De Vries for the line, and he's only 3rd. So Charles Leclerc, I said how well he'd done all the way through the year, doesn't really look like troubling pole position at any point throughout the series. Throughout the weekend of this series, and then pulls it out the bag to take a 1/10 lead. Remember, the tyres will hang on for a second flying lap. Here's Arjun Maini, who's been posting personal bests throughout this lap. First sector, second sector, and indeed in the final sector of the lap to go 7th over the line with a 150.5. Fukuzumi, Palou, Aitken, De Vries, Albon and Leclerc are the drivers ahead of him. So they all know there is time to cool off the tyres and go again, but that is some response from the Monegasque driver, who carries the prancing horse for the Ferrari Junior Academy on his crash helmet, and he really has underlined maybe lulling them into a false sense of security, thinking that this might be a weekend he's vulnerable at, and then bang, underlining why he is such a hot property. Saw a really bizarre story earlier in the week about Gunther Steiner, the Haas Formula 1 team principal, saying he's not interested in signing Charles Leclerc. Well, I imagine Charles will be thinking your loss, because there are many in the Formula 1 paddock who very highly rate the man who is on provisional pole. Not done deal yet, though. It's not over yet. We've seen Leclerc improve from 5th to 1st. Palou will be eyeing a massive improvement. At the moment, Palou is going to post his season's best by a mile. The best that Palou has managed so far this year is 8th position. He's currently in 5th with 43 seconds on the clock. That's the good news for the Campos